All right, we've got almost half of our, actually we've got over half our people here. So we're just going to get started officially. I'm going to take off my glasses. I will use them if I need to read and say welcome. I'm Cyndi Freeman.
I'm Gail Thomas.
And we are here to present a webinar on sharing stories to inspire others. Why this is important, how to build your own, and we're going to share a couple of our own stories, hopefully, and show you what we mean and inspire you. Now, first thing that I want to address is why we chose this subject, and it has to do with, we're really at an unprecedented time. There is so much going on. A lot that's scary, a lot that's fabulous. It's just so much, and it's so chaotic, and people need to be inspired. Whether it's inspired to look at the world in a different way, or inspired to get involved with, say, the Black Lives Matter movement, or just feel better about their future when they don't know what the future brings. And more people are turning to, leadership in the workplace. This program is being run by our corporate workshop department. And so this is for anybody, but we are focusing on stories that you share at work. Now, storytelling is important in all communication, but especially when you want to inspire people, because it is how the human brain is wired. We look at the world trying to figure out what's going on, and we frame it and organize it into stories in our mind. We listen to other people when we want to hear stories from them to find out what makes them tick, and do we have anything in common? So stories are important to bond people together around shared ideas or enlightening people to new concepts. And also we listen with the back of our mind. There's always that piece where we're trying to glean wisdom from others as a way to inform the decisions that we make on ourselves in the future. So if you understand this, you understand that the stories you share shape a narrative. And if you need to inspire people to take an action, to think in a different way, to feel positive about the future, there's no better tool to do this with than a story. Gail?
Yeah, and then I'm going to tell you like a little bit about when and where you might tell a story. It's pretty much everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. In a personal world, it would be maybe a date or with a family member or a friend. What's been going on? What'd you do yesterday? Suddenly you're telling a story. But professionally, there's so many, I get a lot of people who ask me for help with interviews. There's also onboarding, training people, recruiting people, sales, raising money. There are so many situations when a story can come in handy. And the bottom line is it creates trust. And it creates buy-in. So the person listening to you, it's a way, we'll talk about this, we always talk about this in class at least, how you show instead of tell someone about the message that you're trying to get across.
So to talk to you about what we mean, we thought that the best way to do this would to be start with a story and end with a story. The basic agenda for the day is that we've introduced this. Gail's going to tell a story. We're going to analyze it a bit. We're going to talk a little bit about how you find your own stories when you want to inspire people in your life. From there, little Q&A, and then we're going to end it with a story from me. So that's the plan. But I want to hand this off to someone who I always find inspiring, who has told so many stories that have stuck with me. But this one especially was a story that I asked her to please share, because I do feel it's just a story that it means a lot to me. So ladies and gentlemen, no further ado, I would like to present Gail Thomas.
So I have never been good at sitting still. I like to hike, I like to bike, go to museums, anything to keep from sitting still, date, anything. And in August of 2009, the dating that I was doing is what I call defensive dating. Because once again, I was in love with a gorgeous, funny, handsome guy that couldn't commit. So the way that works for me, my strategy was always, all right, you do defensive dating. So you have other people available and other options, keep from being disappointed. So at this time, I had some pretty good options. I had an architect, I had a sculptor, I had an IT guy, and everything was, sort of the balance of life was pretty good until I got my diagnosis. Cancer, curable, but it's not exactly second date fodder. You know, what would I do? Go on a second date and say, you know, I can't decide if I want chicken wings, onion rings, or chemo, or radiation. What do you think I should do? So I had big decisions to make, and I just told these guys that I would call them back after cancer. And I focused on those decisions. And I hoped secretly that this would be the time that Wes, the non-commitment fellow that I was in love with, would actually have his Hollywood moment and realize that he was in love with me too. That did not happen. Instead, he started to date someone new just as soon as I started chemo. And then my hair started to fall out. And I found myself going from being activity Gail to being a girl that spent a lot of time on this blue couch here. I had more time to meditate. I had time to read and cook and just sort of spend quiet time with myself. I was morphing into this person that I didn't know, and it was strange and uncomfortable. I was an introvert. I was suddenly listening more and talking less. And at about this time, I was getting into sort of a cancer routine and my chemo, and my doctor said that it was okay for me to start dating again, that I could be normal. And that's what it was to me. That's because I needed my options, right? So for me, normal was dating again. So I was excited about that, and I had a bunch of different wigs for all different moods, so I was ready to go there. I had my red sassy wig, I had my blue surfer girl wig, I had my wavy brown hair wig, and all sorts of options for my moods. But when I told my family and my friends and Wes that I was ready to start dating, they said that I should just wait. Maybe you should just wait. And to me, that meant that they were telling me that no one would be attracted to a bald girl. And, you know, people who don't have cancer tend to have a lot of advice for how people who do have cancer should spend their free time. Apparently, they just wanted me to stay home and stare at the wall. Well, I was not doing that. So one Sunday evening, I didn't tell anybody, and I put an ad on Craigslist. And I don't like to get it wrong, so I have it here to read to you, even though I've practically memorized it. So here's what I wrote. And it basically, the heading was, it was in it was in the personal section under friendship, just to be safe. And it said, bald girl seeking romance was the heading. Here's what I wrote. It would be fun to find a fun, fit, smart fellow who likes a nice shaped head. I'm returning to normal after a crazy medical scare, cancer in parentheses, which required a bit of chemo. It's great to be back and better than ever, feeling ready to explore, to meet a cool guy, friendship, date, or at least explore the sweet world of kissing. I downplayed the whole trauma thing, and within 2 hours, I received over 45 responses. I had to actually take the ad down because I really didn't have the energy to respond to all that. And here are a few of what I read when I went to my inbox. One fellow wrote, I thought it was such an incredible coincidence that I was just thinking about posting an ad looking for a bald woman friend. I know it sounds unbelievable, but it's true. It probably doesn't mean anything, but I figured it would be nice to connect with someone who had a similar experience to my own. I'm a cancer survivor too, leukemia. Steve at Yahoo 54 wrote, tall, athletic, a full head of hair should make for an interesting contrast. Another guy wrote, hi, bald girl, it sounds like your nightmare is behind you. I'm genuinely happy for you. Another guy wrote, a good bald-headed woman is so hard to find these days. I've always wanted one for myself, but the good baldies are always taken. Maybe we can get to know each other until your hair grows in, of course. I'll be gone. You know what they say, hair today, gone tomorrow. Good feet are a plus. A Frenchman complimented me on my originality. Another fella said, sorry to hear that. I just got through testicular cancer last year. Let's have some fun. Another guy wrote, just because of your bravery and boldness, where only a handful would dare put themselves out there, you definitely deserve my response and admiration. Good for you. Your incredibly positive attitude and straightforwardness is that attracted to me. Your baldness, although temporary, did too. And then there was a guy who said, I'm in Harlem by the A train. But my favorite response actually came from a woman who wrote to me, and she said, I'm not looking for a date, but I'm going through cancer treatment too, and I just want to let you know that your ad made me feel normal, like it's okay to go on. And I did. I went on a few dates. I think the French guy and the testicular cancer guy. But it turns out it is actually just as hard to find love bald as it is with hair. But even more than that, it turned out that my friends were right. I wasn't ready to start dating. I was actually sort of growing to like this introvert Gail, this new Gail, and I wanted to spend more time with her and just being quiet on my own. And it was a discovery that, you know, being still and staying home on this blue couch is actually really pretty exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail, so much. I love that story. So yes, I'm seeing you're getting applause in the subject box, which is fabulous, in the chat box. I am curious, you know, this is a story that I find inspiring. How did it inspire you? Give me a sentence or two. How did you feel? Like, what did it make you feel? Applause, made me laugh and cry. How did it make you feel about the world? How did it make you feel about people? Hopeful, excellent. Refreshed, fabulous. How did it make you feel about being sort of stuck in your apartment? I know that for better, yeah, real, yeah. Yeah, sense of possibility. Huh, I'm hearing somebody saying that she cannot see all the people's chat, so I'm not sure.
I know why. When you respond, you have to respond to all panelists and all attendees. That's on the side of the...
So folks, there's a little button to the right on the bottom. It says either all panelists or panelists and attendees. So if you want everybody to see it, please choose all panelists and attendees. Thank you, JC. So I know for this story, I've been feeling a bit cooped up, but that, you know, I've been nesting. I've been making my place look really beautiful, and you know, and I think that there's something about Gail's story that made me feel like it's okay to do that. So I know for me, yes, Doreen, I like Gail's vulnerability as well. And we're going to talk about why a personal story is key. And then I think this is a great place to bridge that. And I just want to read. Just people telling you they love your story. That's awesome. I do too. So let's break it down what's going on here if you want to create a story to inspire others. A personal story is always more inspiring. And with the things that we saw there about feeling moved, about liking Gail's vulnerability, it's all in the personal narrative. So if you want to share a story about a historic figure or a famous person, or perhaps even somebody in your family, that's secondhand, something your grandmother told you, so forth and so on, these can be inspiring. But if you really want to get to the heart of the matter and grab people where they live and connect with them, a personal narrative is always a bit more powerful. So how do you find a story to inspire others? Well, the first thing you need to do is every audience is different. Every situation is different. What is going on, and what is it that the people that you are speaking to need to hear? Whether this is a call to action, whether it is to have hope in a moment of chaos or crisis. What do they need to hear? And a good tip on that is it's often connected to what you yourself need to hear. So a couple of things that I know I need to hear right now. I mean, for Gail's message, that's exactly what I need to hear, that it's okay, that it's a positive thing, that there's something freeing about, you know, just being alone and being yourself, you know. Other things that I know would be stories that I need to hear that I think other people might need to hear. I've got rheumatoid arthritis. Black Lives Matter is out there, and I want to march in the streets, but I'm on an immune suppressant and I can't. I'd love to donate money, but money is tight and I can't donate a lot. So I keep on having to remind myself that it's okay to find your own unique way to give back to the causes you believe in. So that's a story that I'm sure I could find some things about. Another message that just keeps coming up to me is just because I don't know the answer to a problem doesn't mean a solution doesn't exist. I just don't know it yet. And so whatever it is in this situation, it's not one size fits all. Choose a message you need to give to someone. It should be succinct. It's like writing a haiku, one clear sentence, the moral of your story, or as at the Story Studio, we call it the controlling idea. So there's that. And then from there, you need to meditate a bit and think back in your life. Is there ever a time in my life that I experienced something that could be used as an example to prove that this moral of this story, this message, this controlling idea is true? So it's really, who's your audience? What do they need to hear? State it in a sentence. Think back in your life. Is there any event that I can think of that I experienced that highlights that message as true? And that is it. It's very simple. The one thing I would say is understanding when you're trying to inspire other people, stories make people want to talk. So when you have the time, and we're in a 30-minute seminar here, we don't have the time today, but when you do have the time, the compliment of a great story is not, that's a great story. A true compliment of a great story is, oh my goodness, I want to tell you my story. So if you want to inspire people and they start agreeing with you and your ideas and want to share a story back, try to find the space to listen. The final thing that you need to do is structure that story. We're not going to do a deep dive into that today. We do that in our workshops and we did in our last webinar, but just understand there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a change. Who you are at the beginning is different than who you are at the end. And who you are at the end is somebody who's a bit wiser, and that brings you to your controlling idea or the moral of your story. But we do want to talk about how to bring stories to life. So I'm going to hand this back to Gail to talk about that.
So, gosh, there's so many little devices, but we only have time to give you an overview. Mm-hmm. So basically what we like to suggest is scenic detail, because every story has what we call narrative fact and scenic detail. Like in my story, for example, my narrative fact was that I like to be active. I'm activity Gail. I can't sit still, and I'm dating these people because I'm in love with somebody and I want to stay balanced, right? So that's kind of the narrative fact that you need in order to understand my story. If I just jumped into the middle and you didn't have that set up, you'd be confused, right? So that's my narrative fact. But scenic detail is actually what brings you in and helps you see what I'm seeing when I'm telling you my story. So for example, when I talked about the different wigs that I had, when I talked about sitting home on my couch and said that I like to hike and I like to bike, you could pick, like if I had more time to tell the story, I might say there's nothing like a beautiful sunset and a tree and walking around, and maybe I like to bike really fast. The longer version of the story, I do talk about biking quickly, and I go into all those scenes so that you can see it. And so to create a scene, you use your senses, of course. There's sight. So me describing the different wigs, what they look like. There's also obviously smell. One example I use is when I was first looking for apartments in New York City. I had a realtor take me around. We walked into this one building and I smelled urine. And so, of course, I don't even have to tell you that it was a dumpy apartment that I didn't take, because you're there with me. As soon as you hear that, you feel that, you smell that smell, you know I should get out of there, and you're there with me. So it's much better than me just saying, oh, it was a dumpy apartment, because it gives you a smell. And I could also describe it, obviously. So then there's also taste, the taste of coffee, the taste of maybe a burnt piece of toast. There's also, gosh, I'm getting shy here. Taste, touch. Oh, I love touch. So touch is like the tingly feeling. I could say that this guy that I was really, in love with, it always made me feel tingly when he walked past me. So then you'd be like, oh, she's attracted to him. That's another way to say attracted. So again, it's using the senses: smell, feeling, touch, taste. And there's two other little devices that we put in this category. One is what is thinking mind. So what I'm thinking, and I use that one heavily in all my storytelling. Like when people told me that they thought I should wait to date, I was thinking, oh, they're telling me no one's attracted to a bald girl. So that's my inner thoughts. And you can do a lot with that in your story. And then the other device is actually hearing a quote or dialogue. This is what people said to me. And frankly, this story has a lot of those with all of me reading the emails. Those are like quotes. Those are giving you a real detailed understanding of what these wonderful men that were really cheering me up are doing. So those are devices to bring your stories alive.
Excellent. So thank you so much, Gail. I'm taking a look at the time, and I kind of want to dive into my story and then see if we have a moment or two for Q&A afterwards. But we've just discussed this, and I think that the best way, again, to really hit what we're talking about is to show you a second story and illustrate it through example. So hold on a moment. I'm going to spotlight myself, and I'm going to get started. So my story is connected to a message that I so need to hear right now, which is sometimes the worst case scenario in hindsight turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of things that feel like, oh, couldn't be worse. But there is a time in my life where this happened in the past, and it turned out glorious. And so the deal is, 20 years ago, I had a dream. I was going to go to the largest arts festival in the world, the Edinburgh Theatre Festival, produce a solo show, find myself an agent, and tour the world, making money with my own art, telling stories. I had two friends that were doing this. They coached me through it. That's the dream. I was a year into this. I was making money. I was raising money. Everything was about raising money for this. It was expensive. I was writing for grants. I was working, catering, reception work, waiting on tables. I didn't have a moment's free time. We're 5 months away. I've just won a grant. I'm about to fly into Edinburgh in order to meet venue producers. I'm so excited. This is my first grant when I get a phone call from my landlady. I live in a basement apartment in an old Victorian house. And she says, hey, I'm bringing in a full-time babysitter for my kid, and I'm giving you 5 weeks notice. You need to move. And I'm about to get on a plane. I'm like, only 5 weeks? And she said, well, legally I only have to give you 4. And I like you, so I'm giving you 5. But you got to be out of here. And this couldn't be the worst timing in my book. Like, it's granted the place is not perfect. It's a basement. It floods. You know, like, I know I need to eventually move, but I was going to do it after Edinburgh because I don't have any free time. I call my friends. I'm bitching and moaning, and 2 of my dear friends say, you know, we'll check out the coffee shop bulletin boards while you're away. If we see anything, we'll let you know. So I'm in Edinburgh having these great meetings, but in the back of my mind, I'm worried and frustrated. And one of my friends leaves a message. She found me a place. She goes, sounds too good to be true, so I don't know, but it's a 2 rooms in a Victorian 2-family in Davis Square, Somerville, better neighborhood than I'm in. $250. What? It's like beyond half of my rent. When I went home, I saw this place the next day. The person interviewing me says, oh, you're a performer. Do you know Dorothy Dwyer? I'm like, yeah, she's my best friend. She's like, she's my best friend. Oh my God, we have the same best friend. I got the place. Now you would think, great, lower rent, better neighborhood, I'd be thrilled. No, I wasn't thrilled. I was bitching and moaning because now I have to rent a truck, and now I have to rent boxes, and and like I have a fundraising effort that I'm supposed to be doing, right? But hear me out. This is the timeline of what happened next. 11 p.m. on a Sunday night, I move all of my final boxes out. The following day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I return. I've defrosted the refrigerator, towels on the floor around it, making sure everything's safe. I'm going to get my security deposit back. I walk downstairs and my feet hit a puddle of water, 2 inches deep. I skip back on the stair, turn on light, won't go on. As my eyes are adjusting, the place is a train wreck. The drop ceiling's on the floor. The landlady comes tearing down. Don't go in there. I'm like, what happened? She said, a water pipe burst. I'm like, when? She goes, like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I say to her, I said, oh my God, is the damage over there? Like, that's above where my desk was. And I'm doing the math. Like, that's where my computer, all of my marketing material, my photos, my proof, my script, like everything. And then I said, if I had been there when this happened, I could have died. And she's like, you got a point. And I said, and your girl isn't here. We couldn't be luckier. And she went, huh, I didn't think of it that way. She gave me the security deposit back, and I got in my car to drive home to my bigger, brighter, cheaper, sunnier apartment in a half-hour timeout, thinking I need to be a little bit more positive. This wasn't the worst possible timing. This was the best possible timing. And it really was. The move made everything easier. Fundraising was easier because rent was cheaper. I was closer to all of my many crazy day jobs. I got to Edinburgh. I took the town by storm. I got an agent. I toured. But in the hindsight, the piece that I really take with me is the fact that sometimes what feels like the worst case scenario in hindsight is truly the best thing that could have happened. Thank you.
Yay! Yay!
All right, y'all. I'm looking at the clock. We got 2 minutes to tie this up. So I want to throw out a couple of sort of like just some basics for you to know. And that is, first of all, here is my contact information. I am with the Story Studio. This is my email, this is my phone number, and you get a coupon code. We have classes. We teach 2-day and sometimes 6-week classes all online at the moment through the Story Studio or just go there. We have a few signed up right now. More are coming. We're waiting on scheduling from some of our folks, but you're all on the mailing list now, so you will get information when new classes are up. If you use the coupon code Learn Online, you will get a 15% discount on this. We also teach corporate workshops where we come into your business, again, virtually at the moment, and we teach customized around your needs, your wants, and your organization's issues, troubles, and also what you want to accomplish. So that is what we do, and you can get 15% off of those as well with the coupon code. Gail, you have 1 minute left.
Questions? Should we ask? Do we have time?
I could say, like, has anybody got a burning question?
Any?
Steve Gordon would like to see more 6-week sessions online. Okay, we will take note of that. Angel saying thank you. Actually, if you guys want to stick around, we're going to end this officially because we know that a lot of you are busy, and we said half an hour, and we're not going to make you stay any longer, but we are happy to stick around a little bit longer and answer any questions that you might have.
So we do post up. We haven't posted all the classes that are coming up. They'll be up soon. But if you have your own unique interests, or your corporation does, we customize as well. So if you have this thought of like, well, this is what I'd like to do, but you didn't talk about it today because we didn't have time to talk about everything, then you have Cyndi's contact information.
Yeah.
Please stay in touch and let us know, what your situation is and why you're looking for a story, whether you need one for your company or yourself. And somebody wrote, can you tell people, JC, tell people follow the Story Studio on social media. It's she just put it into the chat box there. It's Story Studio NYC on Twitter. You pull out details from your memory for a story that seems too short.
Too short or so short? I mean, my story, for example, is, man, there are so many details. There's a 20-minute version of this with what was going on with the guy I was dating and my mom who helped me move. Like, it is a tapestry. But for the message of sometimes the worst case scenario is in fact the best case scenario, I didn't need to tell all of that. And so it's about, this is my first draft. I probably workshop this for about 10 days, 12 days in preparation for this, went over it with Gail. So it's about picking and choosing, and it keeps coming back to, what is my message? Does this detail serve this message? No? Then maybe I don't need it.
I'll just quickly answer Sasha Lynn's question. It's hard to give direct feedback on a story, obviously, when it's just general, and that's all obviously the point of working one-on-one or working in a classroom situation. Then we can really dig into the meat of your story, because it really does take time to develop a good story. It's not, but I would say, in answer to your question, she says she has a story that's 7 minutes and she's trying to make it 10. I would look for patterns. If you think, well, gosh, this was an event that happened and this is what I learned, if there's a time before or after that you sort of were easing into a similar time where you were easing into learning that, so maybe you might have a little more backstory, or maybe you might have this is what I learned as I look back. Again, it's hard to give you specifics, but
without saying it. We'll see you at the open mic. Maybe you can tell it then. Yeah. But I would say a couple of techniques. Start later in the story. For those of you who know structure, there's that, there was the setup, what life was before, and then the inciting incident. Something happens that launches the story. Identify where that inciting incident is, and can you get there in 30 seconds to a minute? What are the bare bones of what we need to do to make this make sense? So there's that. The other one is script it out and take a highlighter and cut the fat. Are you saying something twice when you could say it once? But those are a couple of techniques. There was a gentleman, Ben, who said they're gonna You're going to speak with your colleagues to see how you can use this in your corporate communications. Letting you know that I will be sending a link to the video. So it might take me a couple of days to get back to you because we need to download the video and do some editing. But I'm going to send everybody a link to this video. So Ben, if you want to share the video that you are watching now with your colleagues, that will be something that will be available for you. What is the open mic information? Jean, again, here is my contact information. Email me at Cyndi@thestorystudio.org. The open mic, which anybody here would be able to attend or perhaps tell the story if you get there early enough. It's first time, first serve. It is this Wednesday, July 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and it runs for 90 minutes, and it will be hosted by Amy Soloway this time. It is a free event. Donations are always welcome, but it is a free event, and all that information will be there with the invite.
And again, there's so much stuff that's coming out, so do go online to the Facebook group and follow us online. You can go to Story Studio. It's thestorystudio.org. We have a newsletter that goes out, so there's a lot going. Oh, look at that nice person. How and where do we make donations? We could use those.
JC, can you toss that up for them? We are connected with a show called Risk. So it's Story Studio is a sister company to a fabulous podcast, Risk, the stories you thought you'd never dare share in public.
Right. PayPal.me/Risk Show.
Thank you, JC. So I was going back to, what is your opinion about write what you know versus write what interests you? I don't know that I agree with that at all. Sometimes I want to write about what I know, and sometimes I'm curious. I want to write about what interests me. If you are passionate about it, write about it. That's my theory.
So,
thank you. You can review us on Yelp. Yes, please review us. Send us some quotes. We're always looking for good quotes. So I'm seeing so many people say some nice things here. How and where can I send great reviews? That's Steve Gordon. Thank you, Steve Gordon. Fabulous.
Are you putting the webinar link in the follow-up email for the past webinar?
I'm also going to put the webinar link to the past webinar in the follow-up email. We did a really great one on stories to connect people, so that you can take a look at that one as well. That one actually is run by Brad Lawrence and myself. And on that one, we do a deep dive into structure. So I know that I believe Nur was, I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I don't want to destroy it.
Also saying that is on our past webinars on the YouTube page.
Yeah.
We'll put the link up in a second.
Thank you, Sarah. Anything else? Any other questions?
There's the link. Oh, she has the link for Yelp. JC's put up.
JC is she's behind the scenes, our master in chief, and she is a genius. I love that woman.
Produces the Risk Show. If you guys don't know about the Risk podcast, and there's also live shows that are every week. Risk Show is the sort of the log line for Risk is where you tell stories you never thought you'd dare share. And that is
I just posted it. It is risk-show.com.
So
all right, y'all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the great comments. Thanks for the great questions. Just one last shoot. Is there any other questions? Thank you, Steve Gordon. I really appreciate that. Any other questions from folks?
Come to take our classes.
Come to our classes.
I want to dig deeper with you. There's never enough time, but I'd love to. We can help you craft your own stories.
Yeah.
And online classes are a blast. Actually, we all go into each other's homes and look around at the furniture, and then we tell stories.
All right, y'all. I'm gonna close this down. I do want to say thank you so much. Go out there. Tell inspiring stories, inspire others. Come back. We'll be doing other free webinars. The goal is to do 1 or 2 a month. So there'll be at least 1 a month, but most likely 2. You are now all going to be on our newsletter. So if you don't get a direct email from us, off of the list from Zoom. You will be on the newsletter, so you will hear. We will keep you in the loop. Gail, anything you want to add?
I can't think of anything except that it was fun. I wish I could see your faces. Now I want to meet you all in person or in Zoom.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you also for the behind the scenes support from Brad and JC. Thank you all who attended. Have a fabulous week and onward into our brand new bright future.